All right. Welcome to another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, and today's special guest is Duncan Cragg. Duncan, how are you?
Well, thanks.
I think you're fairly well known within the running community here in DFW. You're one of the store managers at Luke's. I think all of us runners have actually bought shoes from you or the store. So that's pretty cool. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you.
It's pretty exciting. I know you've been part of the running community for a long time, and I would love to get to know you a little bit as a runner, how you started and things like that. So let's start from the beginning. You've been running for a long time. When did you start running and what did you run?
When I was in elementary school, I couldn't quite make the track team because
Okay.
everything was very sprint centric, obviously for the age groups. 400 meters was the longest thing. I realized that wasn't my skill set, but I didn't get distracted because track and field has a kind of a special welcoming to be inclusive of all kinds of abilities and distance and even field events. So as I got into high school, I discovered that there was formats that were more designed for my nature. So the long distance runner has got a little different kind of personality than the sprinter.
That's
And
for sure.
as you go through ages, people have just natural gifts to sprint, and they're normally little athletic kids, and they normally get into other sports pretty quickly. So the instant gratification is there. And what I learned was running was something that if you show perseverance and you work at it, it allows you to grow into a sport that you can take it on as your domain.
Yeah. I love
And
that.
you get introduced to team elements of that, but ultimately you still have to be accountable for yourself. And I think that's a sport. Not all athletes are wired that way, but a distance runner tends to adopt that at a young age and they carry that on for the rest of their lives. So it's hard for them to teach people that because you got to find it. And it's one of those things that just can happen. So my existence today as a runner is I try and help people find that skill and the stuff will follow if the skill is honest. If it's not true to the person, I think the passion or the impulse of achieving kind of changes because you get gratified or you go to a school of performance that you end up climbing very quickly and you get rewarded very easily. And it's almost like the penance of the journey. And I think distance running allows you to do that. And I enjoy that journey. I've gone away from racing because of that, because I enjoy the process of going through seasons and just modifying my movements to adapt and have a state of adaptation and evolving.
So it's when you were racing, like you're just getting too competitive and then you're like, man, I really enjoy the journey. I don't want to do this just too much.
I like to use the analogy Labrador with a tennis ball. And I think a lot of people get motivated by signing up for a race, but the mindful journey of listening to your body and your needs and adaptation, I think I may have been competitive, but I realized there's a double-edged sword to that because when you get pulled into that, you tend to sometimes not listen to yourself because you got the show goes on.
Yeah, that's right.
I shifted gears early. Never went down the marathon path because I just noticed there was that sort of once you get involved in that, you chase your tail and you keep going down to improve your marathon time. And there's a point where you don't be you realize that you're getting older. You've maybe shortened some of your ability to run more years in your life. So my metaphor for marathon is to run as long as I can and with quality movement to try and keep holding on to my fast twitch muscles and keep them exercised. So I realized as I got up into distances, people default to longer distances purely because they are getting slower when they age. And secondly, there's a mindset that you just need to do a lot of hours in it and it becomes more practical. If you're out there running 30 minutes to an hour, putting in 2 hours can be feasible. You just good bang for your buck. And then you're surrounded by a lot of people doing this. So I noticed there was a lot of this kind of mass pull of trying to get you involved into social runs, marathon training. So I've always stayed clear of that. I enjoyed the performance and the chase on a track. It made me feel alive. I guess that's animal side of me. But the grinding away in mileages, I never enjoyed a long run or a Sunday run. I was always trying to question the functionality of that and did it anyway, but I realized that's not me.
Well, that's interesting. So let's back up a little because I'm still curious about your running journey, and and thank you for providing that info because I think one person said to me like, you probably know Jose Lopez. One of the things he does run a lot, but He runs it at a lot slower pace, but runs really fast when he runs his halves or fulls and things like that. He said, Chris, I've been doing this since high school. And then I went to college to run. And he goes, now I just try to think about longevity and how I can run for a longer time because of health. He wants to be able to do that for longer. So to some degree, you said some of that, but not exactly in a different way. But so you started running in high or in elementary, high school, things like that. What in high school, what did you run? Was it the mile, 2 mile, or what?
We basically had the half mile, the mile, the 2 mile. We ran anything that allowed you to be athletic. And I realized there was a lot of athletic kids I ran against that won the quarter mile, and the half mile. But it was nice to find that I could play into their athleticism. It was good for my identity as a young kid developing. And purely it was just good, hard work all year round. So this like whole year of training, there was always a good payout, and it wasn't always really resting on talent. So you could outrun people instead of them outkick you. And it was you control the domain. I've always enjoyed that. But when you put talent and that together, you get something special.
For sure.
A lot of those talented kids, sometimes gratification gets satisfied so quickly, it's harder to get their attention to stay there. So it takes a certain personality of people saying, I want to do this and I want to take it to a level that's way beyond college. And it's very unique skill set there because those kind of kids are really thinking about their career as a young kid. I felt like that. I had a chance to see running as a tool to get to where I needed to go, but it was also a tool that could help me stay with who I was from being a kid. Because those impulsive things that you develop your identity around, they're very true when you're young. And then you get all these distractions of other career paths, and you go to school, you study things and you go down. But to draw from that energy of who you are is something I need to find. I think that becoming a teenager is right where a lot of these cool things happen. I see it in
Yeah, I agree. Where'd you go to high school at?
I'm from South Africa. Yeah, I went to school there. It was a very, very, I think if you have an image of the sort of schooling of the Harry Potter's uniforms and very English and colonial rules and regiment. I see some of the private schools have it here. We had a lot of structure, but it was also like, there was like a lot of machoism, and they had more brutal sports like rugby and like football in America. But I think distance was like inclusive of men and women, and it happened all year round. But it's no different. I see the same things in the schools. Yeah, same personalities get pulled into it.
Yeah, that's right. So you mentioned that you use that as a tool running from high school did you run in college or
I ran at SMU in the track team back in the day. That's what brought me to the US.
was SMU really?
Yeah, so I recruited me out of high school. Obviously, they went with world rankings, and so I ran at a level that was top of the nation. But I was a little different because I always saw this as how I can rally up people around me. So growing up in South Africa, I grew up with apartheid, and the year that I graduated high school was the year they abolished apartheid. And it was an interesting thing because we were recruiting, and I was training with a lot of kids that legally we were not supposed to be training with. So we had like a freelance motley crew that would just meet up at a park and train together, but get the best out of each other. So
Yeah.
my endurance running was taught to me by how a lot of the rural African runners would just run naturally in the bush, they just were very good at running cross country naturally. They didn't like track because they didn't have access to tracks. And they just seemed like so imperial, like it was so set and measured. They loved road racing and they loved cross country. So there's always a division in the athletes. And then when apartheid was abolished, we were allowed to combine the two schools and friends, and they started recognizing our group as a melting pot. And a lot of the athletes that came to SMU with me were out of my running group back in Africa.
No way.
And so because we were ahead of the system, we were integrating before the government made it law, but it was also frowned upon because people weren't sure whether we were doing the legal thing or not. A lot of times people, to avoid adversity, just stayed away from commenting on us. But our elevation of athleticism went to world class level. So it was neat because we were sharing talents, but the spirit.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, I was lucky.
All right. And I'm going to ask you about times and things. And I'm not sure if I just want to, I think that kind of puts it in perspective of where you were back in the day. When you look at one, were you running 3 miler or in college, or what was the?
Yeah. So in college, my specialty, was steeplechase, which is a 3,000 meter or 2 mile for the high school runner. And it's run over hurdles. So it's like an obstacle course.
Yeah.
Jump and everything. It's a novel race. A lot of people like to watch it because of the fallout on the water jump and things.
Yeah. I've seen.
In order to do that, you had to be able to go from the half mile up to 10,000 meters. Taxes your body like a 5,000, 10,000 meter. So if you do a heat of it, takes a lot out of you.
Does, huh?
But you'll find it's also a melting pot. A lot of milers like it because they have to be able to change gears all the time. So it's suitable there. But when I grew up, it was one of my events. But when you came to college, you tend to get used in what you're good at more than what. So I just ended up by default. That was my role to make sure I got the points in that category.
Got it.
I always felt like I could be a miler, a half miler. And that's the thing I noticed with the younger kids here that I help with is their coach puts them in a position to be something in high school, but you really don't know who you are, what you are, because sometimes you turn out to be a great marathoner, but you put out as an 800-meter runner and vice versa. If you say you show some talent, you end up getting pigeonholed and never getting a chance to experience the other things when you start maturing.
So when you ran the miles, since you seemed that was your thing, what was your best time that you were in?
We grew up running 3,000 meters. And then in college, when I grew up, I ran the 1,500. We all metric. So that's like the mile equivalent. So
Almost. Just 100 meters from that, but yeah.
Yeah. So I was like a 3.5, 1,500 meter runner in high school. So it translates, I think it's like 4:05 pace high schooler. But this is in the 90s. So today it's like, that's average. But back in the 90s, the gene pool was smaller and the talent was different.
Nobody was running a 4:05 back then, or it was rare.
And also we were raised, I was at 7,000 feet above sea level, but it's just a whole different world. But the ability to translate that into other sports, like when you go to college, kids that have got a good mile pace, the coaches love that because that's what you're going to finish your last mile in. You just have to get that last mile. So that's training. But an athlete is an athlete, whether you're going to outkick. So we don't want time trialers because they don't do well past the conference level. Once you do that finish, you're also going to finish your last lap of the sprint. So you decide what you're going to train your VO2 at to what you can handle. So in college, I ran less of the races I enjoyed. There's less diversity. I was stagnated in high school because I just never get a chance to race in college. Yeah, it was just always the one thing I did.
What in the steeplechase, what was the distance that you mostly did? What was the?
Yeah, so it is a 3,031 race. In high school, you do a 1,500 when you're young because it's far, but it's 3,000 meters. So a 3,000 meter race, it's at the 840, in high school is 845 pace, which is like over a hurdle race, 9:15 2-miler, but over hurdles.
Okay.
So
you're running 9:52 mile with the hurdles, a mile.
About a 9:15 2-miler, hurdle barriers and so on.
A 9:52 overall. Oh my God, for 3,000. Okay. I was about to say 9:52 a mile. That doesn't really sound that fast, but
yeah,
for the 3,000 meters, basically. Yep.
Yeah,
that's pretty quick.
Long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. All right. You ran in college, the steeplechase, is that what it's called? I did talk to somebody that was very interested in that once on this podcast, and they're still wanting to do it. They said it's really hard to find those kind of things these days. So what was next? What'd you do after college? Stayed in Texas, right?
Yeah. So I had to figure out how I was going to immigrate because that was my intention, to be here and be part of this nation.
Yeah.
So sport was my gateway. Came here, but I try to bring the best values, the things that I was raised around, and bring it see where I can bring some of those things into the society here, and or just keep practicing what I know.
Yeah.
So we grew up with club systems, like you have club soccer and
yeah.
But most of our sport at a club level was thinking internationally. But at school level, you're just basically appeasing your region or your area or whatnot, and then season's over and no one really knows. And then the school kind of processes that. But the club level thinks of growing you to being representative of your sport. And I found little club levels back in the 90s when I got out of college. Club levels had some kind of existence for kids, but nothing for adults here. Our club system goes on until you in your 90s. They have age groups all the way up and people practice and do track workouts, just like you would do in high school.
It's awesome.
But up north, they have it here. Just in the south, I think, where they eat and everything. But when I started working for Luke's, the closest thing to that was the track meets they put on in the summer, which they put on this June. And it's an all-comers track meet for anybody in all ages. And that's where the steeplechase could be run for those who want to run steeplechase at any age. So we look for venues with steeplechase hurdles.
Are you guys still doing that or no?
Yeah, we're doing it. We just getting a venue together. We've done it for the last 40 years of our existence. And
I didn't know that.
One after the Twilight Meet in Oregon. So it was based out of Oregon, Phil Knight's project.
Okay. So that's so interesting. I didn't know. But is there anything here in Dallas that, for steeplechase?
Well, so it depends on the schools that we get access to because we have to contract the facilities. But TCU meet, we have one in TCU with our Fort Worth location, and they have a steeplechase bar. It's a big draw. Everyone just comes to watch it just because it's novel. But it all depends if the schools have it. The high schools don't really have steeplechase yet, but it's because they don't have water pits. And so
that's right. So then after college, you wanted to immigrate here basically, but you started working for Luke's to do that, or what's the?
It ended up, I was doing gait analysis and fitting running shoes in Africa. And that was a unique because it wasn't really heard of over there. And one day we went to a store and I said, "Hey, you guys hiring?" And I was 16 and I was trying to figure a way to make
At Luke's or some other place?
A store in Africa. And
in Africa, got it.
Irony of it, person running it, he ran in college for Oklahoma State back in the 70s. And he went back and took the idea of specialty run to Africa. And I ended up working for him as the first kid he's ever hired. He had some adults. And so when I came to run in college, I said I needed to find a store that I can get my team the right equipment because everything was about what your team was sponsored by. And so the kids with injuries needed more attention. And I discovered Luke's back in college. And then from there, I realized that the people that got Luke's, the owners of the Lucas family, they were one of the pioneers of the whole specialty run. And the guy that I worked for in Africa, Johnny Halberstadt, who then opened up the Boulder Running Company later because he also immigrated. The guy when I was working for knew the owners of Luke's, and there was a small world of a little triangle of 2 degrees.
Kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. And then when I graduated, they wanted to know if I could come and help because they saw my skills I had and doing gait analysis and that. So it was it translated my athleticism into another opportunity.
That's awesome. I love that. It's a great story.
This is 30 years of doing this.
Yeah, doing it for a long time. And Luke's been around for a long time.
They're 50 years old. So, I mean, it's unique.
I think just talking about Luke's a little bit is that I remember you guys gone through some ups and downs and now back ups. And it's really awesome to see. Running in DFW, I don't know if you agree, but has taken off over the last, feels like 10 or 11 years, maybe longer, but for sure over the last 10 or 11 years and even the last 3 or 4 years after COVID, like COVID just seemed to ramp it up even more. I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but it feels like DFW has just exploded.
Yeah, I think the city is so well equipped for the trail systems and the energy behind trail. And it's a cheap man sport, but it's also very...
It's not really that cheap.
Relatively, and they're having not to worry about facilities and things, but it really works well to have an explosion when people just need to exercise because they find all kinds of reasons to run. But yeah, our industry, there's more diversity, more run groups out there. They're doing all kinds of like new age running, like doing other things and running. It's mixing. And so when Luke's first started, they mixed running and Western wear. And that was like the most, talk about creating
it's a Texas thing though, I guess.
It's like a feeds. And so it's happening now, and with people just creating different groups, their passions mixed with running. Running's just becoming the format to be sociable.
Yeah.
Give me an example. I'm curious because I see some of these groups on Instagram. There's this group called Run It Up.
And they literally have 80,000 people on their Instagram, and they show all these videos about here in Dallas. This is not anywhere.
And they're dancing and hanging out, having fun. And then they go run 5Ks and stuff. It's just, I mean, it's this fun kind of group to be a part of. And it's like literally 50 other groups that are super serious. Like the sloths are just intense, running 2:30 marathons and things like that. I love the intensity as well, but there's just on different levels, right? Run It Up is, hey, exercise can be fun. Let's all get together and just do some exercise and run a little bit. And then the sloths are on the other end. How fast can I get my marathon? And how they're running 80 to 120 miles a week and just trying to get every little step that counts and stuff like that. But it's all the way from there. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, but that constant, the word running or walk, run, or whatever you want to do, is being part of a bigger thing, a bigger organism. I'm finding that helped me integrate because it was into that like universal language, translates, but then everyone's alter ego is just working with this, whatever they're passionate about. Let's merge these things and fuse them together. And it's been good. It's just an excuse to do something.
Yeah. And it's really doing something with your community, with other people. And that's running brings people together. It is, you mentioned it's individualized because you are, especially if you're racing and things to go out and try to hit certain whatever PRs or whatever, but it's also a great community sport where hey, let's go run 5 or 7 miles together. Let's be on a specific thing, or people use it as dating kind of things.
Yeah. What a neat format. You can't
I agree.
Can't end out there.
That's how I met Leah.
Yeah.
My wife is through Dallas Running Club. And if it wasn't for that, then I would have probably never met somebody like that. She's pretty intense about her running, and I can be not as intense, but I still enjoy it. And so our lives revolve around races, or at least some of our lives. And it's fun. Find somebody fit.
And you could meet a person from another part of the world and just quickly dovetail in with them. It's neat.
It is really neat. That's the beauty about these communities is somebody you might not think you would ever talk to, and all of a sudden you're having these long conversations with them because you're running 5 or 10 miles with them every single Saturday or whatever it is. And I have a lot of friends now just in the running community that I would never have. And this podcast really helps a lot too, because I get to know them a little bit more. And some of these really fast people, I would never run with them because they're too fast, even at their slow paces. So to me, it's been really great.
Yeah.
What are you seeing? So some of the things, let's get into your expertise a little bit because I'm interested, is over the years, shoes technology has changed. And I think that you are seeing a lot faster times in the half marathons and the marathons and probably other distances. It's obvious partly due to the shoes, don't you think?
Humans chasing times is always you always get your gene pool gets bigger and people performing better. And then you put a bunch of those people together and they elevate the performance. But
Love that you said that.
So what I think footwear's done, and there's different groups that come in that want different things from running. Like some people they're hell bent in running a super fast time and whatever that is to them. And you got to understand that mentality to be able to help them with product because they're investing in an idea there. So when you have these shoes that aid you, question is, it's like, well, if you getting aided, that achievement is kind of changed because you can buy a part of the outcome. You can buy into a part of the outcome. You can choose your equipment that's going to aid you. And it is a tool. And if we can choose our tool, the best suited tool, I think the stuff that I find is interesting is people can train with less injuries. So the injury side is one thing, but also people have obtained injuries from things they don't understand why they're getting injured from it because it's aiding them. So it's got a different kind of injury out there. Injury that a plated or rocker shoe is now utilizing muscles that even the medical industry are scratching their head at saying, this is not functional movement 101. This is aided movement. This is an injury related to something pushing somebody. We don't know what it is. And so a lot of the stuff is being watched right now. And so you've turned your product into a big component of your mechanics. But back when I grew up, racing flats or straightforward run shoes, polyurethane, shoe was done. You've got symptoms that your shoe needed to be replaced because you start getting common issues. But now no one knows where those issues are coming from. because you got all these extra variables now. And then your paces are encouraged to move. So if you have a shoe that makes you perform better, how honest is that to what you've done and who are you doing it for? Is it for the number? And I just think it changes the playing field because you're saying that this can make me do this. If I buy this, it would make me do that. It just changes the sport.
I agree, but I think that for sure, and you make a very good point about the mechanics and just how we're not sure, like the injuries, what's causing the injury and things like that. Because I did start wearing a plated shoe for a little while and found that my Achilles was starting to hurt.
I love the shoes, but the more I ran it, the worse it was. And so I quit doing that and I don't even use the plate anymore and I'm fine for the most part now. But it took me like 5 or 6 months to figure that out and get over it. But I do think that technology over time and anything changes. If you look at the way we work, for example, AI is changing everything and how people work, like creating content. All right, like I'm creating this content now. Used to, I'd have to think about a title and a description and just really use my brain to do it. Now I could put the whole transcript and create a transcript of the video, and then it can tell me, like ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, the title, description. So technology is going to help us one way or another, whether it's in shoes or apparel of some sort, and people are going to use it to get better. Now, is that our true time? I don't know. Like, fair enough. But I think that's just how we as humans will do. We'll always go with something that can enhance our ability to do better, especially if it's legal.
Well, that's a good question. So shoes that age you are getting removed from the actual driving experience of running, gritting it, feeling the earth, fatigue. And so these things are getting remedied by product. And so you're moving one step away from a Harley Davidson into an SUV that's almost airtight and you can't even feel the wind in your hair. And yeah, whatever you want to do, whatever you want from that, there's different things. I think you can be in a wind tunnel as well. And I think if you want to feel fast, it will let you feel fast. If you want to feel, it's like a combined experience.
Yeah. Yeah. You can buy the experience. People do. Luke's has exploded on selling all these shoes that they can't even keep in stock sometimes because so many people are buying them.
We'll try.
I think that you make some really good points.
I really like that. I never thought about.
I saw you out running the other day. By the way, we were running at White Rock Lake and the sun was in my eyes. And then I think I was running with Jose. He goes, "That's Duncan." Oh, because I think I waved at you. I was like, I can't see his face. But so do you run? What do you run in? What's your kind of?
Yeah, I run about an hour a day. But I try and keep it diverse and speed and agility. I can't play. I just try and move better. I love the idea of parkour where you just go along and you find your way and get excited about running along a terrace and you just do it and just play around. And whenever I have a chance to talk to someone a bit, I go, I love this mindful movement and just like the original fartlek where people just run by impulse. And of 30 seconds on, 20 seconds off, which is
you just run however you want.
Sprints is the whole concept of just moving.
That too.
Yeah. And it's hard to sell someone. How do you do it? It's like, I don't know. It depends.
It's when you feel like it, just go.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So my running's become that. I enjoy it. And if I find people that are interested in that, I sync with them. And I just think I think there's needs more of that thinking instead of rhetoric and structure, because we're always creating structure around us. It's one of the sports you can just be free at. There's so much of it to be structured.
Maybe that's the allure for like trail running is that trail running, it's this beautiful place. And some places, sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easier. It just depends on the terrain. Some people can speed through it, but it's really difficult, right? So it's a different mindset.
And that allows you to just get out there and be free. You can run fast, you might fall. But
that's talk about a different crowd. I talked about distance runners and faster runners in high school or middle school. The ultra runners take that to the whole, that's the distinction from the regular marathoner is they have a spirit that's just a different breed. And it's interesting after those guys, it's that just their philosophies are very different.
I like doing both, to be honest, Duncan. I've done some 50Ks and stuff, fun, but a little too much for me. But I like being out on the trail. I like being out on the road. I don't like
some years I'm more on the road or some years I'm more on the trail. Lately it's been on the road more people are on the road so that you can run with. But
And also, if you pass someone on a path and a trail, there's a different greeting than if you pass someone on the road. It's just, we're going to share the spot right here.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Have you done much trails in the past?
I'm a big fan of cross country, but I've never run these ultra marathons or any of this. I've never run past a half marathon, but I'm interested in running some halves more to as a destination deal instead of
Yeah.
competing.
So going out on a trail and run a half marathon, trail half.
I enjoy playing around. If it's a venue where I can sightsee, even better.
There's plenty, like Blaze Trails has lots of different trails that are somewhat local, like that. They're not like destination kind of, mountain like trails. I do destination stuff to where my wife and I did this. It's called Trans Rockies. It's a lot of miles. It's 120 miles in 6 days, but you go from one destination to another in Colorado. It was just beautiful, like just going up the mountains. And when we just, let's say, took our time, but we weren't going to win it. And it was just the beauty of being out on the trails and running and just being out. We even did an Alps trip in the Alps back in September of last year. And it was so beautiful. Like, we're just jogging the trails, did it with the group. And so I just love being out in nature for the most part. I don't want to camp or anything if I don't have to, but you're big into helping kids and things like that in the running. I always see you at the lake at Norbuck.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
That's an interesting thing. I have a child who he is about to go to high school, and I didn't want to have him to live up to my family's reputation of runners. So he doesn't really know me as a runner. I've never really raced in front of him. He doesn't know I did that. But I figured he'd wind of it one day. And
Especially after this podcast, he's going to listen.
yeah, probably. But yeah, all my brothers and I were like avid runners. And so we want our children to find their own way. And because we found it on our own. And so this group that I got together about 4 years ago, it was just before the pandemic or during the pandemic, and where all places were closed, you couldn't run together, social distancing and whatnot. And I felt like there's a missing element in the community where they have organized track clubs for kids, organized training groups for adults, but very little is done for adults and kids to share the experience together. And I often saw like Dallas Running Club, some parents would bring their kids to it. The kids were on the side and just wasn't their crowd. And I said, one of the things I liked about club systems is everyone's age group is inclusive of a big team. You run under your club. You have the master runners all hanging out at the barbecue, cooking. And then the kids are doing their track, but they all did the track workouts together. And we're sharing this. But everything here is if you want to interact with your child, you would have to sit on the sidelines and encourage them. So during the pandemic, when no one was meeting, soccer fields were closed, I thought if we do trail running and people are spaced between each other, we could probably pull this off without making any red flags. And because the kids needed to get out and do stuff, why would better than doing it in the woods? So we thought about using Norbuck Park because it's safe and it's not too far. But the idea was I wanted to be something where if a parent wants to bring a child and they bring it and participate, whether they walk or run, they're getting out there and then going through the process and the exercise together. So they get in the car and they talk about the exercise, not watching and then saying, you could have, should have done that, or maybe you needed a push, maybe you needed to back off. But when they're participating, they can feel it without imagining. So there was a lot of families that came that used this as some kind of communicative tool. The kids would end up bonding with each other and the parents would bond with each other. And they would talk about the situation where they out here sharing the same situation where they're trying to bring the child maybe off a computer game into the outdoors, and it's even nicer than a natural run. So these runs I put together are designed to not measure the kids, but so they don't feel obligated to meet anything. So we do a 20-minute run 3 days a week, and we do a dynamic warm-up and a static stretch. My job is to teach them what a dynamic warm-up is and a static stretch. But that's how we collect everyone to meet. So we've got a 10-minute margin. And then the 20-minute workout is we have an exercise like it's an obstacle course or it's a trail run. The clock goes for 20 minutes. They run and they do as many loops as they feel fit to, whether they walk it, run it, but they're just outdoors. 20 minutes finishes, and then we do a group stretch and we have an overview of what we just experienced. But the kids, I wanted them to learn the anatomy. of stretches. So I get them to basically take turns calling out the stretches. And we do this in a circle. And we've had families come and go and come back again later. And there's also been a great crowd for even parents that have separated. This is common ground. So they come here and they both participate on the field.
Oh, well.
And then the parents go off to doing what they're doing afterwards. But this is family time. So our biggest draw is our Sunday evening. And because the most show up, it's a nice way to start the school week.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's just the regular woods trail run. And so the idea is to keep everyone safe, but liability falls on the parents as well because they're out there. And so trying to make it as simple as possible. And now 4 years into it, it's evolved into something really neat. We're having a lot of schools that don't have sport bring their kids out during the summer. And we're having kids that are too intimidated by their track team come out. That's really what I wanted to get to, looking at the discovery that I made when I was 14, where it gave me a chance to do it all year round on my terms, helped me identify consistency and practicing that showed that I had to be accountable for that. And so finding kids they crave to come out, because if they can come out, they look for someone else to bring them out. And that is really a cool thing when you have a child that says, hey, can we figure out another way to get out there if you can't take us? And I'll get back to me as a great, cool compliment.
I love that, man. You've really created a community that is a little bit different, but around running and just around.
Again, it brings community. You're bringing parents together and the kids together, and they're bonding with each other. They're hanging out with their kid a little bit. Kids are going to be kids and they're going to hang out with other kids, but so are we. Hey, and then they're finding common opportunities to say, hey, if my kid plays video games all day, what do you do? And so they're doing those kinds of things.
That's
Okay, and this has been, go ahead. Sorry.
I felt like that was my contribution to society right there. Coming over here and immigrating. It's the coolest thing I've done.
It is cool, man. Thanks for coming on to another DFW running talk. This has been spectacular, Duncan. So if you haven't got shoes at Luke's, which most people have, you're off Mockingbird in Dallas. That's the one you work at, but there's also one in Fort Worth. So, you can go to Luke's Locker anywhere in Dallas, Fort Worth. So it's a great place to obviously get your shoes and apparel, and really appreciate, Duncan, you coming on and telling your story. Really awesome.
Hey, thanks, Chris.